Good afternoon, we are now live.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you're connecting from. My name is Vincent Garnier. I'm the Director General of the FTTH Council, and I'm very happy to welcome you on this webinar session. We are having today a topic directly coming from one of our committee at the FTTH Council, the Sustainability Committee, has put forward a very interesting proposal and program that we will share with you today. So the session is titled FTTH Carbon Footprint Cooperative Platform, Get Your Organization Ready for the Next ESG Obligations. And while I see many of you are still joining the call, I will take a few minutes to cover a couple of housekeeping items before I formally introduce you to our panelists. So we will start with a brief introduction about our organization, the FTTH Council, for those who are not yet familiar with our association. We are a pan-European trade association. We regroup 165 companies all involved in the FTTH value chain. Our goal, our mission, our objective is to promote FTTH network as the most sustainable and future-proof technology to bring connectivity to everyone, everywhere in Europe. And for that objective, we are developing content, we are commissioning market study, we are organizing events, and this series of webinars is part of what we do. We try and bring value for our member and also to the larger ecosystem directly connected to fiber to the home. And you will see that what we do on sustainability is directly aligned with this mission. So more info on the council can be found on our website. Today we are in a session which is part of a series of webinars which cover a variety of topics on technology, on market, but also, as this is the case today, on the question of sustainability. We would like to, maybe before I introduce the panelists, just want to add that the session is recorded. The recording will be shared to all of you after this session, as well as the slide deck we presented. And you will be able to access that as a replay, and it will be sent via an email communication to all those who attended the conference and those also who registered initially. You can ask questions using the dedicated function on the platform. We do not take live question. You cannot express yourself verbally. There are too many people on the call today, but you can type your question, and we have reserved 10-15 minutes at the end of this session to address them. So don't hesitate to ask questions, even if we cannot take them during this 1 hour. We will follow up and make sure you get an answer. So with that, and without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our panelists. I'm pleased to have with me Paul Minot, who represents Toovalu, our consulting partner for this project. There is also Jeroen Kanselar, who is in charge of ESG at Eurofiber and also the chair of the Sustainability Committee of the FTTH Council. And last but not least, Xavier Renard. Xavier works for ACOM and is also a board member of the FTTH Council and has been an essential driver for this project around the measurement of carbon footprint. And actually, what the session will cover today is consideration about what is the environmental impact of the FTTH industry. How can we measure your company, your organization? How can you measure your carbon footprint easily? And concretely, what the FTTH Council is offering you as a program to help you both better measure your carbon footprint, but also move in the right direction towards carbon neutrality. So these are the topics which will be developed, and with that, I would like to pass the baton to Xavier, who will be the first presenter for this session. Xavier, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vincent, and hello, everyone. Very interesting topic for today, and especially when we start dealing with the carbon footprint, it's very critical to make assessment of the product, assessment of the organization, and assessment of the sector. And a year ago, before we start the project I will explain you about, we had those two types of figures in mind. On the left part, the emission of the digital. So we know it's between 3 and 4% of the worldwide emissions. We know it's rising quite fast, but inside this digital emission, we don't know and we didn't know what is the part of fiber. On the right side, then it's the European emissions by sector. So we see that first sector is power, second is transport, and third is the industry, about 800 million tons of CO2 equivalent a year. But again, within the industry, we didn't know what was the part of our sector, the fiber sector. So this is how we came to launch an initiative called FTTH Carbon Footprint Project.
And actually, what we said, Xavier, is that before we effectively move to further in the presentation, we wanted to ask our audience a little bit about what is their level of readiness in terms of ESG. So I don't know if you see that appearing on your slide, and I can see that I don't need to comment. People are already voting. Do you have an ESG policy? Do you have an ESG policy but still don't measure carbon footprint? Are you more mature? Have you started to measure your scope 1 and 2 of carbon footprint? Or are you nearly there, meaning you have already progressed to a point where you are already measuring carbon footprint 1, 2, and 3? So I'll give you another maybe 30 seconds. I can see that close to 50% of the participants have voted. Let's wait a little bit. It's becoming very interesting to see the proportion of the audience, and I'll share the result in 1 second. I think it's more or less stable now. I think we need to stop in the interest of time and close the poll. You have to excuse me, but I need to share the result. Okay, so I hope you can see the result. And Xavier, maybe some comment from your side is relatively balanced. We, not surprisingly, we have a good proportion of representatives on the call interested in the topic and having already done good progress in measuring carbon footprint, but not everyone. Maybe a few comments?
Yeah, it's very interesting because it was also the same, I would say, proportion we had during the project and the initiative, with having some more mature members and helping the others to jump in this topic and to help them measuring. So, and it's really interesting because with these different levels of maturity, there are a lot of things the FTTH Council can propose, collectively speaking. And so indeed,
transition to the next part. Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. So indeed, so what we wanted to do is make an assessment of the sector, but to do so, we had to make assessment of organization, and some of them didn't make their own assessments yet. So this is why we created this project. So maybe Paul, before I continue, may you explain why this GHG protocol has a kind of issue?
Yes, hello everybody. Very happy to be here. So as you can see on the left, we will talk about the CSRD. I think probably most of you already heard about it. For those who didn't, the CSRD is the new European regulation The goal of this regulation is to better evaluate European companies' sustainability performance and the related business impacts and risks. So the key word about this regulation is transparency. Transparency for your investors, your consumers, and your stakeholders. This regulation it will impact the European companies this year for the bigger ones, or in 2026 for the SMEs. Why are we talking about it? Because it will bring a big change in the way companies will have to report their carbon footprint. Indeed, with the CSRD, all European companies will have to report not only on their scope 1 and 2 of their GHG emissions, but also on their scope 3 emissions, which, as 45% of you know, is the more difficult scope to report on, because the scope 3 emissions are your indirect emissions. So for this, you need your suppliers' data. So that's why the initiative we are presenting today is so important, to connect all the industry together, so the FTTH industry can work with relevant data, so you can all build a relevant scope 3.
And maybe for those who are not familiar with, maybe you can re-explain what is scope 1, 2, and 3. Well,
Yeah, sure. So as you can see on the graph on the right, scope 1 emissions are your direct emissions. So really the carbon emissions that come from your activity. So the product that you create, the vehicles you own. So really direct and very based on your activity. Scope 2 is indirect emissions, so the electricity you consume, and maybe the carburant, the gas you put in the vehicles. So scope 1 and 2 normally will represent 10 to 20% of your total GHG emissions. So all the rest, 80 to 90% of your GHG emissions, will be your scope 3. So what is scope 3? It's the GHG emissions from the product or the services you buy. So these come from your suppliers. The emissions from what you sell, so to your clients, again, products or services, plus all the movement, sorry, of your collaborators traveling or coming to work in the morning, going back home in the afternoon. So all the emissions around your organization.
thank you. And so indeed, you need to ask your suppliers to provide you the carbon emission of the products you are purchasing, so that you can add them in your calculation. And if you don't get this kind of data, it means that you need to use more generic data available somewhere in databases. And this is also why the initiative was important, because we want to build a database for the sector, so that if your company doesn't have the data from their suppliers, they can use data coming from the sector. So we will see this later on. But as you have to understand, is then you need to get data from your suppliers, and usually it's coming from EPD, so Environmental Product Declaration. And what is an EPD? On the next slide. So an EPD is more or less the environmental ID card of your product. So usually we use a methodology called life cycle assessment. So it means that we'll start from the carbon emission of the raw material, then the carbon emission of the manufacturing, the distribution, the use, and the recycling phase. To do so, there are a lot of things already existing. There are some ISO 14025 for the declaration, ISO 14040 for the life cycle analysis. And you have also some rules, calculation rules, given in PSR and PCR and PSR. So it means that a lot of things are already existing. So you need to know, you need to be trained to do so, but you will need at some point to have what is called conversion factor, so to convert a flow of your activity into a carbon emission. But at some point, you would need a software to do so, with behind databases, and possibly your customer would ask you to have a third-party certification. So meaning that going all through this process can be quite long. And so in our initiative, as we didn't have so much time, what we decided to do is to come back to what was presented by Paul, the GAG protocol, because if you consider that your company is making more or less kind of coherent products, for me as for my company Ecom, I do produce cables. So if I take the scope 1, 2, and 3 and I divide by the number of sold products a year, more or less I would have some kind of EPD, so not with an official methodology, but that can be considered as closed. So this is how we did to accelerate and to build what I will present now. So on the next slide. So why us? Why the FTTH Council to make such a project? Because as Vincent was mentioning at the very beginning, we are the biggest professional fiber association across Europe with more than 160 members. Because we are well representing the value chain, not only operators, but also vendors, but also investors. So all together, we could get a nice view of the whole sector. We have a sustainability committee, and we are committed to build a sustainable Europe. So what we did actually when we started this project is to select 11 members that were representative of the value chain. We were using the same methodology of the GAG protocol. So for the members who were not familiar with that methodology, with the help of Toovalu, we organized 4 collective sessions so that people were trained to make this kind of assessment. Then we also used the tool from Toovalu to make the conversion. And we also had a lot of discussion at the very beginning on how to use data and what kind of data can be shared with the rest of the group. In the end, the outcomes were that all members that were participating to this project were able to get their scope 1, 2, and 3. And starting from this, we built a model that was enabling us to build what we have then called the carbon intensity per household. And then starting from this, we could build a first FTTH sector observatory and having in parallel a first sector database for different kind of products we have on the network. And so by doing so, we could clearly accelerate, I would say, the fact that we could get this FTTH sector observatory and then to monitor the speed with which we will succeed as a sector to decarbonize our footprint. So you may find the link to the white paper we released a few weeks ago when we were at Berlin for the FTTH conference. You will read inside that what we have found with only 11 members is that to build and to operate an FTTH connection is roughly 500 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. 40%, 42% is coming from the operator itself. We also included in this the use of electricity of the ONT. 42% is coming from the contractor and the installation phase, I would say, and 16% from the vendor members. All in one, if we now we know that the number of households which were rolled out the year before. So by multiplying this by the number of also deployed, we could then compare this carbon emission to the rest of the European industry. You remember the 800 million tons. So we found that it's roughly 1% of the industry emission. And for me, quite an interesting figure is to compare this, and also for investors, by investing in fiber. We know that we can have a potential decrease of 15% reduction of the industry emission, while it only represents 1% of the emission. So that's quite important. So on the next slide, please. So this was to discuss about this initiative. So now we decided to move to what we have called the FTTH Carbon Footprint Cooperative Platform. So it's something that we launched during the last FTTH conference in Berlin. So we will describe you what we want to offer as services, the value that it can have for you, and the type of services you can find. So maybe first, Paul, why is it important to make this carbon footprint assessment?
Yes, well, first, as I mentioned, with the beginning of the CSRD, you will have to do it. So, it's a good reason. It's compulsory. The other reason for your organization is why is it important? It's that it's a huge opportunity to get a strategic advantage. Indeed, these days, the consumers and investors are increasingly prioritizing eco-friendly companies. So companies who show their engagement, to reducing their carbon footprint. So reducing it isn't just good for the planet. Of course it is, but it's just not good for the planet. It's also good for your bottom line. It will lead to short, medium, and long-term savings and earnings. Eventually, also managing this topic will allow you to anticipate the risks your activities will face with the climate change. So we are facing a transition, and the companies that embrace this transition will have a strong advantage in the next 5 years compared to the companies who will not do it. So that's why it's so important to be the leaders in your industry.
Thank you. And how the council can help you in this? So there are two levels of services. So for the 45% today who say that they already have their scope 1, 2, and 3, first thing is that there will be a platform on LinkedIn on which you can share best practices between peers. Secondly, as I was mentioning, if you are lacking some data from your suppliers, you can get access to a sector product database. So we start with something which is limited, because we started with only 11 members. So we can say that we have already something available, but it will become more and more precise with additional members who will participate to this platform. Then you can also get access to the observatory. So meaning that for each type of company, you can see with this carbon intensity matrix I was dealing, where you stand on your side, which is always interesting. The second level of service is then to help you to make your own assessment for your company, working with Toovalu. So there is as well a methodology that will be described just afterwards. But then what is really interesting is, again, it's the collective process. So we do it with peers. And it's quite fast, because within 4 sessions, and it was during around 6 months, you would be able to make your first assessment, if not done yet. And last but not least, very important, we decided that this platform will not be only open to members of the council, but to any companies, so that we can embrace really the whole sector. So for coming back to the first level of service, so there is already today this platform available on LinkedIn, on which you can also register. And on the right side, you see the kind of database or observatory you can have. So dealing of depending on the product or on the service you are working on. That can be active device, OLT, ONT, ducts, cables, closures, civil works. Then you have a first level of database, and same for the observatory. You can get as well first figures so that you will see where you stand. So far today, I was telling, we started with 11 members, so we wanted to be sure that our methodology is working well. But for sure, now that we want to make it very big, the more organization will get in this project, and the wider will be the sector database first, and the more precise and the more reliable will be the data as well. The second level of service is to use the support of Toovalu first to train you and make your first assessment, and as well to use their software. So Paul, I'll let you describe maybe.
Yeah. So the process we have to calculate your carbon footprint is indeed first support with an academy and individual support, and then our software that I will demonstrate to you right now. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So our software, as you can see, I just accessed it through a web page. So you don't have to install it. It's a software as a service online, and you just connect with your email and your password. This is the landing page. So on this page, you can see four main parts. The collection part, where you will collect all the data. So all the data will be centralized here. The data verification to check that your data is correct. The third part is the analysis to make sure you understand your carbon footprint and start to dig into it to really understand where your emissions come from and start having an idea on, okay, where will I be able to act to reduce my carbon footprint? Because, you know, it's the objective in the end, not only to calculate it, but to reduce it, of course. And eventually the climate strategy part, because we don't want our software to be only a calculating software, but we also want our software to help you to pilot your climate strategy and to help you to create your action plan to reduce your carbon footprint. So you can find these four parts. Here you have your project, and here you will see that after using it for a few years, you will find your different campaigns and your different carbon footprints year after year. On the right, we have some help with a methodological notes, a carbon assessment kit also to help you educate and raise awareness on your team, FAQ with most of the questions, and a support, so you can always contact us and send us a message, and we will answer you if you have any issues with the tool. So when you will start working with us, the first part you will work on is the collection part. So let's dive into it. So here on the collection part, you have this table where you can find all the data you have to collect to measure your carbon footprint. So on each line, we can see we have the category. So this is my energy, my subcategory. So we are talking about electricity, the name. So here, electricity consumption, the entity. So this is really important. Our software is 100% customizable. So before using it, we will work with you and understand the architecture of your organization, how many entities you have. Maybe you have offices and you have a plant where you produce things and agencies. We will mirror this. So the tool will be set up for you. And when you will start using it, you will already see all your entities, all the filters that you need to understand to reflect your organization. if you have the value of last year, if you have one, and the value. So here, for example, on this line, we are talking about kilowatt per hour of electricity consumed. So I can change directly the value here. I look at my bill and I know that this year I consume maybe 22,000 kilowatts per hours of energy. And here I can see the emissions of CO2 updating automatically. The emission factors are the factors that will convert this physical value, kilowatt per hours, into CO2. This again will be set up by our experts, so you won't have to do anything about it. All you have to do is collect the value here and write it. So you can put it directly there, or as you can see here on the right, we have a pen. You can click there and you enter into the data page. So here you see again what we're talking about: electricity consumption, kilowatt per hours, my entities. You can see some data tags. I will come back to this in a minute. What's very important here, you can put the reliability of your data, because really important to understand, a carbon assessment isn't a financial assessment. It's not 100% precise. Sometimes data will come from estimations or calculations. So it's normal that you have a percentage of uncertainty of your carbon footprint. So here I'm talking about electricity. Probably it comes from a bill, so I know that it's 100% reliable. But if I'm entering a data concerning how many kilometers my employees do every day to come to the office, maybe it comes from a poll and maybe only 70% of my employees answered to it. So I can say that this data is only 70% reliable. And it's okay, and maybe next year I will try to make it 80%, 90%. So this is really important, so we don't spend too much time, when we work on your carbon footprint, on trying to get like every little detail. It's okay to have rough estimation. Here I can put the explanation. Again, very important, because we can create as many accounts as you want on our software. So maybe it's not you, but one of your collaborators will put the data, and so it's really important to have the explanation. How did you find it? And here you can put attachments also to understand where the data comes from. So this is the way you will input all the data, and the software will automatically calculate the CO2 that's linked to it. At the top, you can see the main parts of a carbon footprint. So if I click on travel, I will see the data that is linked to it. As I say here, you can filter on all your entities that we will set up for you. And we can also create that data tags. So again, working with our experts, we will understand what's the view of your business. So if you have different business units, we will be able to tag these different business units. So you will be able to divide your carbon footprint based on these different business units. And it can be as many tags as you want. We really want our software to adapt to your organization so that you can really have a carbon footprint that's really relevant for you. So this is the collect part. So basically a collect, a data collection campaign will last approximately 2 months, the time to get all the data. Once you collected all the data, it's time to check it. So this part is only accessible to the pilots of the project. And if you go to this part, we have a dashboard that shows you globally, what's the state of your campaign. So how much data is still to be collected, how much is already validated, and you can see this data per entity. And if we go here to the validation part, really the same that the information we had in the data collection, we see all the data, and here you can validate it or refuse it. So this part is really to make sure that the data you collected is correct. So if you did it on your own, it will be super easy, you will just have to validate yourself. But if you had a team working on the data collection as a pilot, you will be able to say, okay, perfect, this data is correct, I validate it. Or you can also group it and validate everything. This data verification part is also the part that you can open to external auditors if you need to have your carbon footprints audited and confirmed by external firm. So now we collected all the data, we checked it. So your carbon footprint is finalized. It's time to understand it and analyze it. So we will go to this analysis part where we have a bunch of dashboards to really dive into the details of your carbon footprints. So here we see we have dashboards by category, by entity, by tag, and by year. So if we look at the dashboards by category, and especially on the dashboards here, the graphic on the left, here you will see, okay, what's my carbon footprint made of? So directly you can see, okay, it's mainly my carbon emissions, mainly come from my purchases, my freight, and my energy. So here you can already make some decisions, okay, I won't spend too much time working on reducing my waste because it's only 8% of my carbon footprint. So you know that your efforts must be put mostly on the bigger parts of your footprint. And here, okay, purchase, I can click on it and it go one level of details deeper. So, okay, my purchases, it's mostly here 60% purchase of goods. Again, I click on it, one more level of details, and here I see, okay, it's mainly the purchases of machinery and equipment that make the most of my carbon emissions. So you can play with this graphic to really understand where your carbon emissions come from. If we have a look by entity, it will show you where also the greenhouse gas emissions come from. Maybe more on your offices, maybe more on your factories. And of course, you can see it by year. So once you update your carbon footprint year after years, you will be able to see if it reduces or not. Really interesting here on the right, we also created graphics with the carbon intensity. So you can see your carbon emissions by employee and here by euro of turnover. Why is it important? Because let's say that your company grows by 30% per year. So even if you have some action to reduce your carbon footprint, of course, if you grow 30% by year, your carbon footprint will increase because you just buy more stuff and sell more stuff. So it's important to see if you are more efficient on your carbon emissions. So this is the analysis part. So at this moment, you have your carbon footprint and you really understood it. It's perfect. We could stop here, but what we want is to take action, to reduce it. So this is where the last part comes into play, the climate strategy. Here you will put some objectives of reduction. So here I can say, for example, all right, by 2030, I want to limit my emissions to 6% per year. You will then set some ambitions, big objectives. Okay, for the energy, I want to remove my natural gas consumption. For traveling, I want to increase the share of low carbon transport for commuting. We will have some big objectives, and these objectives will be divided into actions. So, for example, I want to switch to 90% second-hand IT purchases. And the tool, what's really important here, will calculate the impact of your actions. So if I do this, it will reduce my carbon footprint by, and here, 9 tons of CO2 per year. In the end,
Paul,
you will have,
if I may just, in the interest of time, because we only have 20 minutes left and we need to
okay,
keep time for questions
I'm
and for the others. If you could just
almost
very
done.
briefly wrap up
Yeah,
the software part and
just
move
need
to
to,
the other slide.
perfect. It's the last 10 seconds. Here, the tool will show you your carbon emissions compared to the trajectory you set to yourself. So you will know if you have to set more actions or if your action plan is enough. And that's it.
Sorry, I'll transition back to the deck. I think Paul, you might have a couple of slides, but if you could please make it very short to
Sure.
continue the introduction of Toovalu, so we can go back to the carbon footprint platform proposal presented by Jeroen.
Yeah, I will do it super quick. If you can move further, Vincent, to the next slide. Again, the next slide. Perfect. Yes, so I'm just quickly so you know who we are. I'm perfect. Yeah, just on this one. Toovalu was created 12 years ago, so we are pioneers in the calculation of carbon footprints. We measured more than 45 million tons of CO2, so we know how to do it. And we work with more than 200 customers in Europe. If you move on, I'm Vincent. Yeah, this is an example of our consumers. So we are a French company, probably as you heard with my accent, but we work also with European companies, and we have an expertise on industrial organizations. So this is where really we are used to work with companies of on the industrial sector. On the next slides, I think you can skip a few,
Yeah.
Vincent, and go directly, yeah, skip these ones and directly go to, yeah, perfect. So this is the support program that we offer with the FTTH Council. As we quickly said before, an academy, which is a collective training, and individual support. So there will be 4 sessions of Toovalu Academy where you will work together, with 5 to 10 organizations of the FTTH industry. Each session will be a landmark to the development of your carbon footprint calculation. Between each session, you will have time with one of our experts to really work on your case, your situation, and help you calculate and set up the tool for your organization specifically. So as we put here, I'm mostly 4 months, 4 to 6 months to calculate your carbon footprint with us. And maybe you saw on the deck that we talked about 5 sessions. Is because we will add a 5th session in the end to help you, which won't be specifically on your carbon footprint, but on how to work with the software. So this is the program that we offer at Toovalu.
Thank you very much. And I think it's a great partnership we have with Toovalu. But I can also already address a question which came in the chat. And by the way, I encourage really anyone in the audience to ask question and use the question box to interact with us. One of the questions was, do you need to work with the Toovalu software to join the program? I can already answer no. You can join the program even if you already have your own software. The services that Toovalu is providing are really there to help those who don't know how to handle this question, which will require support in their learning curve. But if you already have a good control over your carbon footprint, please join us, share your data, share your experience, and this is where the cooperation between peers really matters. So with that, I'll transition to the next, I think, section of our presentation and give the floor to Jeroen, who is the chair of the Sustainability Committee at the FTTH Council.
Yes, good day all, also from me. As the chair of the Sustainability Committee, I'm proud that we did this project last year, the Carbon Footprint project, and now upgraded to the Carbon Footprint Cooperative platform in combination with all the members who already joined the project, but also, of course, with Toovalu. And I will explain a little bit about the platform and the conditions we are working on with the members and also with Toovalu in this case. But just maybe as a short summary of this webinar and also the explanations already given by Xavier and Paul, of course, on the next slides, you can see some of the benefits if you will join the platform in this case. Like earlier mentioned, you will have access with 3 people, plus 3 people of your company in this case, to a private LinkedIn group. You can use this group for exchanging information, but also questions or discussions about calculating your carbon footprint, but also, of course, the outcomes of the sector data we have. Maybe questions about Sophie mentioned a life cycle assessment of environmental product declarations, how to upload that, how to calculate that. So this will be a really high level participation of knowledge and information sharing in this case. Also already mentioned by Paul in the beginning in the first part of the webinar, the CSRD is coming. And this means that if you use this data for calculating your carbon footprint, but also using the sector data within the observatory part of this program platform, you will align with the upcoming CSRD. So that's also important for most of our companies. And then there's a possibility to benchmark. I think everybody wants to benchmark. Do I have I a lower carbon footprint, or am doing it better than my competitors, or maybe other people in my companies in my supply chain? So you have the availability to benchmark your outcomes with other companies of the sector. I think that is very relevant for everybody. And of course, you contribute to the sector's ambitions to become a net zero sector. So that is important for us. And I mean us as Sustainability Committee, but also as the complete FTTH Council in our discussions with policy makers from the European Commission, for example. It's very important to have more accurate and more available data of how we are doing and how we are on progress in decarbonization and net zero. That is a short summary of the main benefits to join. If you look at the information you already have, that is the white paper, like mentioned. And if you click on the button with materials on the right side, probably of your screen, and with the paper mark, clip mark, then you can download the white paper in this case with an explanation of the project, the outcomes, and the importance of the sector data we already collected. The picture on the right is the first screen of the LinkedIn private group I already mentioned, but that will be joined later. So now it's started, but yeah, of course, if you're participating, you can join with 3 people of your company on the discussions and information chains on that. Now, besides these 2 documents, we already also launched a website part of the FTTH Council. So if you go to the website, and it's now in the chat, I see. So if you go to the FTTH Council website, if you go to the starting page, you have also click to this part of the website, which is separate for the carbon footprint cooperative platform. You can see all the information. You can also download the white paper, of course. But the very important thing, and I will ask you, everybody who's interested to do that, is you have a pre-registration form. You can click on that and you can fill that in. That gives us a lot of information: who wants to participate, on what kind of level they want to participate, and who is interested. So that is very important for us to develop the platform further, because we will launch it probably in June. So within a month, 1.5, we will launch the platform, and then it's important to know who's interested, what is the maturity of the people who are interested. So yeah, I will all engage you to go to the website and fill in the pre-registration form in this case. And then maybe from the last slide from myself, this is the offer. It looks maybe a little bit difficult, but like already mentioned by Vincent, you will get the slide deck so you can read it again, of course, but it's a matrix and it's divided. And you can say that if you look at the roles, the main roles, in 2 basic parts. The first one is more for the sector and for the council. So you don't need a license for Toovalu. For the first part, you see with the 1 in this case on the left. So that means that you will have access to the LinkedIn group. You will have access to the database, so you can fill in your own calculated carbon footprint. In this case, you will have access to the outcomes of it for the sector, so you can use it, and you can use the product database section. So if you have, if you want to use the outcomes of an EPD of, for example, a cable company manufacturer, then you can use that data to calculate your own carbon footprint. For example, in Excel or another application, you can use that information. That is the first level of services. So very good for you to benchmark, make your own carbon footprint more accurate, smarter, and in that case. And it is divided, all the tariffs are divided in 3 separate parts. So we have the members, in this case, we have the members of associated partners of the FTTH Council in this case, and we have non-members. So everybody is able to join, only the tariffs are separate for depending on the level of cooperation with the council in this case. If you look to the lower part of the matrix, you see at the second, you see the offer we are doing together with Toovalu for the collective training, in this case, the academy, like mentioned by Paul, to calculate, to learn to calculate your carbon footprint. In this case, if you're not doing it already or you want to make it more professional, you can use this one. And the lowest part is about the assistance, the consultancy support they provide from Toovalu, and of course, the license for the software demonstrated by Paul. Also divided into member of associated partner, or non-member in this case. So that is a little explanation. I think it's always good to look back in the documents we provide in the slide deck, but there's a little bit about the explanation of the conditions we now have as a council for everybody in this case, not only the members.
And maybe a general comment, Jeroen. The FTTH Council is a non-profit organization. So our objective is not to make it a profit-driven initiative, but we need, of course, to cover administrative costs. We are quite ambitious for this program. We have 165 members, but we can potentially extend participation to a much larger number of participants. The first test we had show a very good level of interest also from non-member. So of course we need to build a way to finance the whole organization of this exchange between peers and coordination throughout the year. There is a lot to gain from everyone in the industry through cooperation, and we think we're in a good position to manage it. And of course, when it comes to the offering of Toovalu, well, you feel free to benchmark the value of the offering against any competitive offering. We're not here to promote specifically Toovalu, but at the same time, for those of you who are a little bit lost and don't know how to approach ESG, we think that partnering with an experienced consultant like Toovalu can help you a lot because thanks to the pilot test we made, Toovalu has gained experience in a very specific way on how to help company of the sector. And I think this is something very beneficial, especially if you start from scratch. So, and we want to make sure we can offer this kind of services. I think we have 7 minutes left, so I think we need to transition to the last part of the session, and we will also use a little bit of a poll which I'm going to launch to conclude this section and really transition to the Q&A. And the question is really to you, what is your view vis-a-vis this offering? What level of interest you have in the different level of services this platform would be offering? Just to let you know that indeed all these elements will be sent to you. You will have direct access to the link where you can register your interest for the program in the email which will be sent to all participants and all registered delegates for this session. And while we are gathering comments, I'm just already looking at different questions. Maybe for you, Xavier, there is a question on, does the sector database differentiate on a high level material category, or is it intended to break the data down to maybe supplier and product line? What level of granularity do we expect from the database?
That's a good question indeed. So as we were only 11 members, so far today is more high level. But the more members and the more data we'll get, then the possibility will have to have a better granularity.
Okay, so we expect to go as granular as we can based on all the contribution we have from members. So I can report on the result of the survey. We could see a lot of traction for the basic participation and quite to a lesser extent to the other support, which makes sense since many of the participants already probably have a solution to measure the carbon footprint. So let me really encourage you to keep on asking questions. I have a question maybe for you, Paul. Is your tool focusing on CO2 emission only, or can you also handle other social and governance goals and create a dashboard for this?
Yes, great question. So we have two modules on the tool. One, that I demonstrated today, that is only CO2. And the second module is what we call the CSR module, where indeed you can also put the data and calculate indicators on social subjects, governance, and also environment. So we also provide this service.
Okay, I have a question from Caspar. Does the 500 kilogram of CO2 per home home pass, I think, Xavier, does it include scope 3? I guess yes.
Yes. And so what we took a special care with the team and with Toovalu to not double count the scope 3, because if you have well understood, scope 3 is something which can be counted several times. So we really take a special care to include it, but not to double count.
I have another question from Graham. He says, we manufacture and supply duct, assembly and accessories to the FTTH sector. Can the calculator be used to model for other sectors which we supply? For example, I guess that, yeah, they are selling duct, but these duct can be used as part of other system. I don't know what is your view on the possibility to duplicate what we are doing for FTTH in other sectors?
This is something we need to look on, because it took us a lot of time to build that model, and especially based on the knowledge we have so far on the construction of the FTTH line and the way the different products we have and the weight of the different products and so on. So it would take a lot of time to look to another market.
Okay. And I have a technical question, which I'm not sure, referring to, is the software able to make PCF? I'm not sure what PCF stands for. Maybe you can answer that, Paul.
Yeah, we cannot do all the parts. Like if we are talking about a proper complete PCF, our software will only help you to calculate the carbon emissions part. If you also want to calculate, the water used by it, like the total PCF, you will need to use do a proper LCA, life cycle assessment. And so this is not something that we do with our software.
Okay. I mean, we're reaching the end of the assigned time for this session, and I know some of you have hard stop at the top of the hour. So again, I would like to encourage you to wait for the follow-up email, which will lead you to the link for the replay and the deck. Please, if you are interested, do register your interest so we can come back to you in a week or so with concrete proposal. We are finalizing the legal agreement, which will have to be signed to be part of the program. As Jeroen said, we plan to kick off everything as soon as possible. We expect to get a group of 20, 30, 50, even more company to start with already this year. And I think it will be extremely beneficial for all company in their journey towards a greener way of developing their business. So thank you to Paul, Jeroen, and Xavier, our speakers of today. Thank you to all for your great attendance and all your questions. And I encourage you to stay tuned. More webinars are to be organized very soon. So I wish you a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Concretely, what we should do is point everyone interested